Formula 1 musical chairs doesn't normally happen in the middle of a season, but in 2018 that doesn't seem to be the case. After all of the situation that was going down with Force India, where they went into a bad situation basically, where they needed to find a new owner, and Lance Stroll's father came and basically bought that team, or obviously put a lot of money into it, and that sort of set off a whole heap of things in Formula 1 which many people, including myself, are a little bit disappointed about. So this move with Lance Stroll's father, buying Force India makes it seem, obviously in the foreseeable future, that Lance Stroll will race for the Force India team. As Sergio Perez brings in a decent amount of money, it looks like he will stay in the team. That means Esteban Ocon, who's had a pretty incredible 1.5 to 2 years in Formula 1, may be pushed aside because he has no money and he has no really financial backing to sort of push him into the seat. And this could happen as early, I'm hearing, as the Singapore Grand Prix. It doesn't look like for the next race, the Italian Grand Prix, anything will happen. It could, but it doesn't look like as of right now anything will happen for the Italian Grand Prix as I'm recording this. But it looks like possibly for the Singapore Grand Prix that Esteban Ocon could be replaced by Lance Stroll at Force India. We'll call it the Force India, not Racing Point Force India. That's too much of a mouthful. Anyway, so what would that would trigger quite a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people seem to be suggesting that Esteban Ocon could go to McLaren. Now that's obviously an interesting one, but they've got 2 drivers signed up as well. Now it's more of a possibility that Esteban Ocon will go to McLaren at the end of the season instead of right now, but Stoffel Vandoorne hasn't had the greatest of seasons. Now don't get me wrong, he's a great driver, and he's shown throughout the whole of his junior formula, and even to an extent last year, he is a pretty talented driver, and really was a special driver going through the junior categories, beating so many of the greatest drivers, including someone like Kevin Magnussen, who's nowadays proven he's one of the best of the midfield drivers. He's beat him in junior formula, he's beat many other big drivers in the junior formula, but he just hasn't really performed in the last maybe year of Formula 1, meaning his seat is at risk, understandably. If you don't perform, even if the car is really struggling, if you don't perform, get anywhere near your teammate, it's quite likely you might get out of a seat sooner than you expect. So we don't know if that's going to happen at Singapore, whether Ocon could go to Force India. Ocon could also go to Williams. He could just have a straight swap with Lance Stroll, because that would make sense, wouldn't it? Obviously Mercedes, they supply the Williams team as well. They could just say, yeah, we'll put Ocon in the Williams. But I don't know. I feel like Williams might not want to do that. They might want to use their test driver, which we'll talk about in a minute. So there's a huge amount of pressure on Stoffel Vandoorne. After the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, it couldn't really get much worse for him. Finishing last on the road. I think he basically qualified last. I know he didn't start last, but he qualified last. I think he was the 20th fastest or slowest car on the grid. And I feel that there's a huge amount of pressure from Vandoorne now. He hasn't really performed to his max this season, and it definitely looks like he could be out of a seat at the end of the season, maybe even at the Singapore Grand Prix in a couple of races' time. So we wanted to talk about what could happen at Williams. So that's an interesting situation. If Lance Stroll leaves, what happens with them? Because until the end of the season, of course, they would have Sergio Sorokin still in the team, but who would replace Stroll if he went over to Force India? It's interesting. There are a couple of options, of course. There is the most likely one, I guess you'd say, is probably Robert Kubica. It'd be a great PR move for Williams. They've had a pretty dismal season, so I think it's more eyeballs on the car, with the Kubica running the race in the qualifying as well as the practice sessions he's done here and there. I think that'd be fantastic for them, fantastic for the sport, obviously mega for Kubica to get back into Formula 1. However, is it the right move for Kubica? Does he really want to tarnish his reputation battling right at the back of the pack? I don't know. If he can get in for the Italian Grand Prix, I'll tell you what, he's probably got a good shot at points. But this whole swap looks like it might not happen until after the Singapore Grand Prix. And after that, I don't know whether we're going to be visiting too many tracks where Williams are going to be anywhere near competitive. I mean, we know the straight lines at Monza are really going to help them. They had one of their strongest showings in a decent amount of times in Spa, and even then they didn't score points. So I think that sort of shows where Williams at this season. But it's worrying for them if all this happens, because they're not going to have the money coming in from Lance Stroll, and they're going to struggle to find someone maybe mid-season that's going to be able to replace him, who has a super license and a lot of money. Of course, as we said, Kubica could be an option. Verline could be an option. Obviously, he's still linked to Mercedes. Russell could be promoted early, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he wants to win F2 and focus on that. Because let's be honest, if he wins F2, he's definitely going to be in F1 next season. And I think maybe the most likely option maybe is Ocon doing a straight swap. That's also an option. So I think Ocon and Kubica are the two people that could replace Stroll if he leaves Williams before the end of this season. Of course, another option, if we're going back to Esteban Ocon, another option is for him to replace Brendan Hartley at Toro Rosso. There's so many options that could happen before the end of this season. It's really, really intriguing, because we've had nothing like this in recent years of Formula 1. I mean, thank goodness, because for something like this to happen, you've had to have a big problem basically with one of the teams in terms of funding, which is of course Force India, who ran out of money and obviously had to go through that whole situation where they had to be sort of brought out from the dead in a way, and Lawrence Strolls did sort of save them. And let's be honest, I would rather Lance Stroll gets a Force India seat than Force India not be in Formula 1 to begin with, because there are worse drivers that have been in Formula 1 over the last couple of years, and in fact there's worse drivers in Formula 1 in 2018 than Lance Stroll. But let's be honest, he hasn't proved over this 1.5 seasons that he's good enough for a car that on occasions could be in a contention for podiums. He hasn't proved that he's worthy of that, so that'd be very disappointing in my opinion if he got that. And let's be honest, the only reason he would have got that would be through the financial backing. Now, I don't want to just sort of dump on Lance Stroll, because I think he's still very young. He's what, 19, 20 years old, and I think there's a strong likelihood, just a few more seasons in Formula 1, he can develop into a pretty good driver. But he's came into Formula 1 at such a young age. He's come into Formula 1 at 18 years old, so of course it's going to be a massive learning curve, and he's going to struggle. And he's sort of, over the last couple of races, been shown up by the rookie Sorokin. I mean, Sorokin, I think at Spa at least, was probably actually a little bit better. So it's tough for Lance Stroll, because it's pretty obvious the only way he's getting this Force India seat is because his father now is putting a lot of money into the team, which obviously a lot of people are going to be shaking their heads at. So for the end of the season, it makes it even more interesting, because we're going to have the Toro Rosso seats both probably going to be coming available. I mean, no disrespect to Brendan Hartley, I can't see, unless they're very desperate, them keeping him for another season. I'd even bring someone back that isn't even a Red Bull driver to replace Brendan Hartley, because he really has struggled. I mean, looking at the Belgian Grand Prix, he basically lost one whole pit stop in the first stint of the race to his teammate Pierre Gasly, because Pierre Gasly just came out behind Hartley after the pits, and I was like, wow, that's kind of mental. He hasn't really lived up to the expectations we saw from his incredible results in the World Endurance Championship, Brendan, so I wouldn't be surprised if someone else took a seat. So we've got Alexander Albon probably in the chance to come and join Toro Rosso. Of course, we've got Lando Norris heavily linked to Toro Rosso for next season, and then also people linking people like Pascal Wehrlein, which we did an interview with on the channel. Obviously, a lot of people saying that maybe he should get himself out as Mercedes contract, as Mercedes won't be in DTM next year. He can get himself out maybe of that Mercedes contract if he can't get a Williams seat, and then possibly go and try and join Toro Rosso and possibly get into their junior program. Because let's be honest, Pascal Wehrlein is still very young. I think he's still 23, 24 years of age. He could still fit in the Red Bull junior program. I mean, without being rude, Brendan Hartley's what, 28 years old, 29 years old in the Red Bull junior team. I think that, you know, they could take someone like Wehrlein and, you know, train him up, you know, 1 year in the Toro Rosso, 1 year of a half decent car, and Pascal Wehrlein can really show what he can do. So there are so many options going forward for the teams like Toro Rosso, teams like Williams. I just hope that they don't all chase the money, because let's be honest, there are so many talented drivers out there with super licenses. It's just the complications around deals already signed. Ocon's basically already confirmed that he's not going to be racing for Force India. I posted that on my Twitter if you want to go and see it. It's linked in the description. But he's basically confirmed he's not going to race for Force India next year. It might not even be as after the Italian Grand Prix. It might be his last for Force India. So it's all going on. The driver market is absolutely insane right now. Even without racing, the off-season break was pretty entertaining. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What do you think is going to be this driver lineup before the end of the season? Do you think Force India are going to have to take Stroll, because now obviously Stroll's father's a big man up there? I mean, then what's that going to all trigger? Is Vandoorne going to be out? Is Ocon going to go and replace him at McLaren? Could Ocon go to Toro Rosso? Who knows? I'm interested to know your thoughts and opinions. So that is it for this video. Thank you for watching as always. Please remember to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Of course, check out 2 of the videos that are on your screen right now. If you haven't already, there'll be 2 ones you possibly have missed. And let me know in the comment section whether you want to see more career mode, because the last one didn't really get much reception, so I'm thinking maybe I'll stop the career mode because nobody seems to be interested in it. So thanks for watching. See you guys around soon. Goodbye.